In today's video, we're going from this old crusty thing to this brand new turbo manifold. In today's video, we're building a turbo manifold for our red GTX. Let's switch on over to the table here and see what I got. I've got a bunch of parts laid out. Before we can build the manifold, I want to talk about where we're coming from. So our starting point was this. This is the factory manifold. It's cast manifold. It's kind of almost a log style. They like to crack really bad right around here. So this one, it's got a crack right here down to the O2. Pretty common. It's fitted with a small turbo. This is a VJ14. On the red car, we actually ended up going to a VJ20 before we broke that. And then we decided to switch to a custom manifold. And so this is the first iteration of our custom manifold. And you might be wondering what all these are. This is for a fresh air anti-lag system, which we're planning to retain on the new manifold as well. Now this manifold, it's got a lot of problems. The turbo was too close to the transmission, made it hard to fit an air filter on it. Just the welding isn't too great. It was the first time I'd ever built a turbo manifold. And it definitely shows, and it needs replaced. And really what the catalyst for replacing that is this. And this is the Pulsar 2860 that was on that manifold before it blew up. And it basically spit the oil seals out, was leaking oil everywhere, not building any boost. And so now we're switching over to a smaller turbo, but more affordable. This is a 2560 from SR red top engine. Now this turbo is going back to journal bearing, not as efficient as ball bearing. The wheels aren't as efficient as the new turbo, but it's affordable and it will spool really fast on our 1.6 and should make decent power. So that's our starting point for this. And for this manifold, I decided to 3D scan the engine bay and use CAD and 3D printing to prototype the new manifold. So that's what you're looking at here. This is what the manifold will look like when it's complete. And from that, I created this jig. It's a pretty simple jig that'll make it easy to make this manifold. Pretty much all the parts fit. I already got started on runner number 1, but it fits just like that. And I also built the collector. So you can see there, nice, looks good. It's all at the correct angles. I created a guide here to make this process easier, which you guys are gonna see we're using. I've already cut out all of the straight pieces I need. And you might be thinking, holy, that's a lot of straight pieces. And it is. It's a lot of straight pieces and a lot of welding that's going to happen. But you can definitely see that in the printed prototype that there's a lot of straight sections and a lot of intricate bends. And I really wanted to build something unique and different than what's out there. You can definitely get a turbo manifold available that'll mount in a similar orientation to this one. But this is designed to be a forward-facing manifold. I got the inspiration from looking at a lot of Evo guys, their setups. It's pretty common on that, and it's a pretty cool look where you have the turbo facing forward. So the turbo will basically sit something like that. Manifold attaches like that, turbo's like that, which is a pretty cool look inside the car. Now let's just get started doing that. The first thing that we got to do to start building this is surface prep all these pieces, because right now they're ugly and they won't weld well. So we're going to put a nice bevel on here and prep this. Also forgot to mention this is Schedule 40 pipe, which this manifold over here that I built was Schedule 10, and it's definitely not set up well to handle the anti-lag. So going to a thicker pipe will be able to handle the heat that the anti-lag produces, which is really what we need because, you know, who wants to blow up their manifold every other event or every time you use the anti-lag system? But yeah, we're just gonna get started. I will have the camera set up so you guys can see me beveling these and putting a surface prep. I've got some nice Scotch-Brite discs that put a nice surface on there. And then we've got a bunch of Weldels actually. Show that real quick. So these are all the Weldels that we're gonna need to make this manifold. And how I designed it in Fusion is I used the center align radius of readily available Weldels that you can get from Ace Race Parts, just to make the fabrication process that much easier. And even simpler, this is how I'm beveling them. I'm not using a belt sander or anything like that. I'm literally using an angle grinder with a flap disc on it. And this actually works way better than you'd ever expect. So that's what we're doing for beveling. I've got just a little die grinder here with the disc to clean the inside of the tubes. And then we're cleaning the outside with that Scotch-Brite pad. So let's get right to it. All right, the first step in surface prepping these is gonna be just washing them down with acetone. There's some writing on here that I just wanna get off before I actually use any abrasives or anything of that sort. Now that we got all the Sharpie marks and everything wiped off of these, I'm gonna take them over to the bench grinder and use that Scotch-Brite wheel to put a nice finish on here. And then we'll come back over here and start beveling. Now I've cleaned up every single one of these pieces. You can see much nicer surface finish than before. I even did it to the Weldels, and you can compare that here. So may not be a huge difference, but it definitely is a difference, and it'll make this whole manifold look a lot cleaner when it's all put together. Now the next step is basically taking all these pieces, and we're gonna come over here to my little bevel machine and start beveling them and making them so they can be welded. And then we get to the process of fitting them together and putting them all into place and then welding it all together. I know I said I was gonna be doing some beveling first, but first things first actually is cleaning the insides of all these. So I'm just using a little die grinder, Milwaukee, with an abrasive disc on the end. I'm basically just gonna go through every single one of these pieces that's gonna be welded and clean up the inside. That's just gonna help the weld on the inside, because yeah, we'll be purging this and the inside needs to have full penetration. All right, I just got done prepping the inside of all these pieces, and now we're ready to get to beveling. Took about 30 minutes to get through all of these, and 2 Milwaukee batteries and 2 abrasives, but we're there, and a big mess to clean up, so let's get to beveling. I got all those pieces beveled. Now we're ready to move on to the next step. You can see here. Got each piece nice and beveled. Some of these small ones are kind of crazy. It almost looks like a ring. But definitely a very time-consuming process, and just running through the batteries on the grinder. It took me way longer than I would have liked, really, but it's done, and now we get to move on to the fun part, which is actually building the runners. So we're just gonna start right off with runner number 2. And the process doing that, how I'm gonna do it is I'll take one straight piece that I need, like that, and then one of my bends, and I'll just tack them together, and I'll do that for each straight piece that I need. So each straight piece is tacked to a bend, and then I don't have to like have 7 hands to hold it on my jig here. So yeah, let's just get to that. We're just gonna start tacking stuff up and getting it fit up. I got all the pieces I need to make the second runner tacked together. Now it's just a matter of fitting these into place. I also went ahead and just tacked runner number 1 in place just to give us an idea. You might be looking at that fit down there and thinking that's way off, and that'll actually probably shrink right into place just how we need it to. But yeah, I need like 7 hands to get this into place. This runner needs to come out, around, and up into here. So it's a tricky one, and I'm gonna put you guys on the tripod and you'll be able to see me get that fit up. Getting started fitting runner number 2 up. That starts out with a short radius 90 and our 55mm section, which is this one. Which goes something like this. And that goes directly into this short radius 90 with the 75mm section. And I'm pretty much trying to not block this hole right here so you can still bolt the manifold on, but also get it as close up as possible. Looking at our template, you can see just how close this one is. It's probably hard for you guys to see, but this hole is definitely tight, and that's just how it has to work on here. Yeah, I'll basically weld these 2 together where I think they need to go, and then I'll tack these up here like this. So I think this one up here is my 20mm section plus a 45, and then the 10mm plus the 45 goes about there. And then the last one with the 45 is like this. So these all will have to be clocked individually. What I'll do is I'll tack these 2 pieces together where I think they need to go, and then just start building from there and build out from here. One of these pieces may need to get shaved down a little bit to get that clearance correct. Yeah, it's a lot of tricky fitting. This is the trickiest part for sure, because I don't have 7 hands, which you kind of need for this. So I'm gonna go back tacking some stuff up and just try it out. I got that second runner all welded up into place, tacked, looking good. You can see there's a massive gap here. You're probably thinking I'm crazy and there's no way I'm gonna fill that. But once this piece is welded up, that's actually gonna shrink right into place and be perfectly in place. We may have to take a little bit of material off this end, but it's up over here a little bit. And that's just because it's too long. The piece is just too long right now. And I'll be welding these in half. So I'll actually cut it probably right here, and I'll weld this half, and then I'll weld out this half, and then I'll put them together, and we'll see how far off it is, and adjust these straight pieces as necessary. Yeah, now we're getting started working on the third runner. I got that third runner all tacked up and fitting nicely into place. You can see it's a little bit long, just like all the other runners. That is going to weld nicely into place. It'll shrink around here. Again, I'm welding this by splitting these in half. So I'll weld this section and this section separately, and then this piece is actually what I'll shorten to be able to fit. I'm gonna do that on all of them. It's an easy way to do it, pretty much. Now, the fourth runner is a little tricky. You can see it's this like short radius 90 and then a 45 to a straight section. It's a big long bend and it's a lot of pieces. So we're gonna be getting right into that. So I'm basically doing the same thing that I've done on all these other ones. I'll find my straight piece, find my bend, attach them, and then I'll just fit it all up. So let's get to doing that last one and then we can get to the welding. I got that last runner built. I did run into some difficulty with this one, and I actually ended up removing one of the 45s that was supposed to go here. And you can see it's just a little bit long right now. And I think it'll shrink into place, or I may have to take a little bit of material off here to bring it down a little. But that's why I'm gonna weld it in 2 halves. So I'll weld this section as one, and then I'll weld this whole section together, and then we'll see where we are. And I may need that 45 at that point, or I may not. But the other thing I had to deal with was some clearance issues down here, which I basically took this piece off and I ended up removing the straight section back here off of that one to get that to be fit up right. I think that my collector ended up being a bit longer than it was in my drawing, and that's why I'm having to remove a little bit in some spots, and it's definitely not perfect. You can see definitely some length differences between the two, but you know, it's gonna work. But yeah, now is actually the fun part of welding. We're gonna split all these apart. I think I am gonna split this one right here and just weld this separately so then I can remove here if I need to. And then I'm gonna split this one right about here, split everything in half and weld it all up for the first pass, and then refit everything, make sure it's fitting good, and then go through and do a second pass on everything with it all fully together. I got all my pieces welded up for their first pass, looking nice and good. Now I'm gonna be refitting everything onto the jig here so that I can do my final pass. I'm gonna fit everything, tack it together, and then do the final pass in one go with everything fitted up, trying to mitigate that shrinkage and warpage that occurs from the welding. But everything's looking good so far, so we're just gonna get right back to it. Pretty much got these 3 pipes perfect. I just took off the number 1. It had a pretty big gap right here, so I'm gonna be cutting that and putting a little piece there to fill that. This piece, I was having some clearance stuff. You can see down here, this clearance is really tight, and my pre-fit was off here, so the clearance, there wasn't enough clearance. So I've now added a few pieces up in here, and that gets my clearance just enough. It's still really tight, but it's pretty much perfect. That's how it's gonna have to be. And it is still just a little long here, so we do have a little bit of wiggle room. And this one fits really good. I ended up adding this little piece here because this originally was supposed to have another 45 right up here, but it just doesn't fit that well. The collector, I think, is different than how it was drawn in Fusion. So there's minor adjustments that need to be made, but overall it's still looking good and it's coming out nice. All these original welds look really good, and there's gonna be a nice cap go over all of that. So yeah, I'm just cutting that last piece and refitting that, getting back to it. guys, the manifold is basically done and completed in its finished forms. Now I did make a small mistake and I want to talk about that. Right here on this runner, I ended up welding to the head flange first, which went really well and came out really nice. But in the process of doing that, I actually popped my tack off of here. And that was my own mistake by not having a second tack, and it kicked this runner out just a little bit. So I had about an 1/8 inch gap there, and I'm just rolling with it. So I welded that up and it's gonna work. It's not the prettiest thing. Definitely if I was sending this to a customer or something, I would have just restarted and rebuilt this runner, cut that off and restarted, because it's definitely not the greatest, but it's gonna work for us. I'm pretty happy with how this came out. So yeah, there's definitely some nice color and all the welds have good pen. Just gotta wait for it to cool now, and then I'll take it off these blocks. Might do a bit of sanding on the flanges to make sure they're flat, and then it's off to installing it. But yeah. All right guys, I'm gonna end the video here. Thank you so much for watching. If you're still here, definitely follow, check out our other videos. If you have any tips, tricks, anything manifold related, definitely let me know. I'm totally open to feedback. I'm always trying to get better, so